we have seen something on grid layout, right? So which was something where you can actually arrange the things in a grid manner, right? So that was a grid layout, and it will be arranged automatically, right? We have seen this part, both the XML part and the grid view class, where XML is something which is a layout where we just got a grid view, and in our grid view class we just took the class, and on create we actually loaded the data into our grid. Right, this is how we actually work with the grid view. Right, now let's move on to the next view, which is a list view. Let me just close up on. Let me create a new layout here. So let me call it as Android activity. Here, let me call it as list activity. Right? So list view activity. Let me just call it as list view activity. Finish. Right? Now here in the list view, so what we are going to see here is something which is same as the contacts we have, right? So we need some list view where you can actually show all the details in a one dimensional grid manner, right? Towards a flow, towards ground, right? If you don't want to make your details in a grid way, right? So basically we go for list view where you can actually show in one direction or one dimension way the data, right? Which will be like a scrollable one. So Android will automatically will embed scroll bar if needed, if data is going beyond beyond the pixel size of your screen, right? Now again we'll be using the same list view, which is the same way in order to populate the list view. Let's go to the graphical view now, over here. Now here, if you can see back here, you have something called in your composite, right? You have your list view. Let me just drag and drop that. Right? Again, the list view is something which will be automatically filled up when we actually write the code, right? So let us say this is your list view, and let me give some ID for this. Let me just say list view. Let's say it has some items, right? So we are going to show some items or states or anything. We'll just mix up all the details and we'll see how exactly this works. So this is the last view or last layout which we are going to check out. Yes, we also have one more view or layout called tab layout. So tab layout will be learning tab layout once we actually learn some widgets, right? So once we have a idea on widgets like button or image, what exactly they are, how they work, right? Then we'll be moving on to tab layout. And again, tab layout is something which will be used most of the time, right? We'll see how it works. Now here we have a list view being dragged upon, right?
Srinath?
So, yeah. The combo box, or it's a list box is different. Now I'm talking about list view here, which is it will actually show all the details at a stretch.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So now, so we have this. Let's go to the class here, which is list view activity, right? So in here, now we are going to follow the same thing which we have done for our grid view, where we have prepared some data and we have filled the data into the grid view by using an adapter, right? So let us check out in the same way. So first thing what we have to do here is, as we are going to add data to list view, right? First what we have to do, we have to get the list view into my class. Now how to get that is in this way. So list view, we can get it in this way. List view, right? Let me call it as LB list view is equal to, we have an internal method of activity called find view by ID, right? So this find view by ID, so here we'll be getting the ID from our resource file, which is R, which is resource R dot. So now you have to select your ID over here, right, which is my class package ID dot. You can see that we have a list view items. So this is the list view ID which we have mentioned over here, right? Now let me just do semicolon here and now typecast it to list view, because this find view by ID will actually give view actually. We have to typecast it to list view, right? So in this way, now we have got a list view in our control. Now once we are done with that, now again the next thing is to get formulate the data which we want to attach it to our list view. So for formulating, let me just call it as, let me take string array again, or rather you can also take array list maybe if you want array list. Let me just try out with array list here. So array list, now you can see array list is something which is a Java API, right? It's a collection API of Java and the util package, right, which will actually hold the data restricted with your generic data type, right? So now here what I'm giving is I just gave string as a restriction type for this array list. So this array list is will be capable of holding only strings, right? So let me call it as lobj data items, right? Let me call it as data is equal to, so let us say you have new array list, right? So we are just taking one entity called array list. So now we'll add some data to this array list. So let me call it as lobj data dot add, right? So here we'll add few things, which is, let's say apple. Let us say we have data dot add. Let me first copy this up so that we can actually add more. Right. So here we have something called grapes. You can just give any random words, right? Just hello something, right? So let's have here. Yes. We have, what are you getting here? Book. Some random names, right? And we have something called corn. We have something pencil. Take out something called brinjal. We have something called and we have some random data. I just gave some random data, right? So why I'm giving this many is, I'll show you where I'm giving actually, right? So as your data increases, right, so we can actually check out how the scroll bar appears. Right? Now here we have made the data ready, right? Where we just took some random data into my array list, right? Now in our previous example, right, if you remember, we have taken a string array, right? In our string array, we just gave some random, alphabets and all, right, to actually show that. Now here I'm just taking some words here, right? Now your data is ready. Now, so in order to attach this to any view in Android, right, we have to go for array adapter, some adapter. So which is mostly we'll be using array adapter. Now let us say I'm going to take array adapter which accepts only string attributes. Let me call it as lobj adapter is equal to, you have new. Now let me take the maximum possible thing, which is array adapter of application context, and resource here I'm going to take android dot r resource dot again. Now here we have to take a separate layout where I want to show each and every element as a, you can select anything. Let me just select simple list item. It will automatically give you a separate list item, which will be a separate view as such. And then resource ID, let me give this array list, which is lobj data. Now this is how it you can actually view. Now you can see it also accepts this array list, right? Because it needs an entity which can support this format. right? So yesterday we just took string array. Obviously, string array will be having all the string items accessed, right? Now, if you want to move to some other, you can just give any other restricted generic data type in your Angular brackets. So that is your array list. Now with this we are done with our array adapter. Now let us attach that array adapter to list view. So we have list view dot. So you have something called add. Sorry, we have set array. So we have set adapter of this. Right. So this will actually set the complete adapter which will hold all this data which are converted internally to simple list item. So it's a separate layout here, right? So Android will give you separate internal layouts, right, in order to get them and convert these things to them. Now this is how you can actually get the list view filled with your adapter, right? Now let me run this and we'll see how it works.
Here, can we use our own layout?
Sorry?
Can we use our own layout instead of this Android internal layouts?
Yes. You can create your own layout. You can create. Yes, you can do that. Yeah. So we will also see that part. So once we are done with widgets, right? We'll actually, so when we move on with new controls and all that, we'll see how to create our own layout and assign the data to that. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. Oops, we forgot one thing. So we have to give this activity as a startup activity, right? So go back to source, layouts, go to main activity, and then here we have to convert it to list view. You don't have to do this because as I have made one of my activity main, if you remember, right? So we have gone through this manifest file, right? So in this manifest, we kept this activity, which is main activity, constant, which is a launcher activity, right? So every time, whenever we create a new layout or activity, right, you can see that each and every slot will be added up to your manifest file. So every time you don't have to go cut this up and paste whatsoever you want to start. Instead of that, what I am doing is in my main activity I'm just on create, which is the startup method of this main activity. So during that itself I'm just rerouting my activity from main to the activity whatever I want. So here my current activity was list view, right? So that's why I'm just taking list view activity as a medium for this. Right? Now, so we just gave that. Let me rebuild this and let me run it. So we'll see uploading APK files is starting. So once your emulator is up, then it will be fast. Okay, now can you see here? Now anyways, it is showing in Dell because this is emulator, right? Now can you see? Now you can see here that a scroll bar, auto scroll bar is there, right? So I'm just I just clicked on this. I've pressed my this left click and I'm just dragging the screen up and down. Okay, so now you can see that this is your scroll bar disappearing. Now once you leave this, it will actually disappear. When you click on this again, you can see the scroll bar is appearing. So once you get to the last of your list, right, now you can see that it will give you a blue symbol. Now let me just go to top. You can see here, once your list is done, it will actually give you this this shade actually. You can see at the top, this is there for all Android apps, but it may sometimes it may not be blue or something, but it will actually give you some shade at the top that this is the first one you have. In the same way, if you go to the last, you can see it will give you the last shade, right? And you can select whatever you want as such, right? So when we will be using these things when we actually move to complex usage like activity result and all, right? But yes, these are something which are more fundamentals to use, right? Now this is how you can actually fill up your list view actually. Now the question is, obviously if you are actually populating something with your list view, right, some data, right, then obviously you have to start this with right, you have to click on this any one of item to select the item, right? So now let's go and see how we can actually handle the listener or event of this list view actually, right? Again it will be same, guys. So till this part we have seen how to set the data, right? Now the next part will be how to handle the event. Now here what we are going to take here is, as we are touching on item here, right? So we are going to take an item listener for this. Let me just take it as a list view.
Srinath,
Yeah.
so is this like in table layout you have said that each object is a view and you can add any number of widgets to that, I mean controls to that.
Yes.
So is it in list view also the same way?
Yes. You can add multiple views to list view. We can do that.
Okay, and that means each object in a list
See
can
here in this one cell, right? You can actually keep multiple views here. A image,
That's all.
a text view, a button. Yes.
okay, fine.
Yeah.
Can you show that one also?
Yeah, I'll show you, because once we are done with widgets, right, again will be when we actually enter into complex things, right, of arranging. So before that you have to understand how image view works, right, and text view works, and checkbox works. So that is the, anyways, we'll be getting this in our curriculum. Okay, don't worry. Right, if I actually take that advanced things here, you may be confused. That's what. Okay, I'll show you that how to work on that. Okay, definitely I'll show you. Okay, so here in our list view, what were we doing, guys? We were handling the event, right? So in order to handle event, you have set, right? So in Android, right, we use set. If in the same case in Java, we use add. So add listener is in Java, which is availability components or string components. Here in Java, we will be using set, right? Set, let us say I want to have a set of item checked or on item clicked listener, right? On item clicked listener, and I want to take one of the listener. So here we can actually give listeners in two ways, right? One is either you can actually have an anonymous inner listener, or you can actually implement that here. Why? Because my listeners, all the listeners are interfaces, right? Now which one you want to opt for here? Shall I go ahead with anonymous inner interface?
Okay.
Guys, it's all up to you guys, because here if you want whatever way you want, I can explain you that. That's what I'm saying. So here let's go for inner anonymous inner class, right? So here you have to just go for new, and you have to go for on item clicked listener. When I click on this, now you can see it will actually take up that, and it will actually create a virtual object of your class. Now basically you cannot create an object of interface, right? So what we'll do, we'll just create a new, which means internally it will create a virtual class and it will implement on click listeners, right? So that is why we always call it as anonymous types, right? Now go here, it says you have to implement abstract methods, right? Because your interface will have some abstract methods which you can override into that. Click on this, now it will override your on click item. Now these arguments are same again as we have seen for our grid view, right? Now here you have your third argument, which is int arg2. Whatever is of type int, right, in on your on item click listener is something which will give you the index of item being selected, right? So now here let's select that. Let me just say arg1 dot get. We have something called, let me just take a string lstr item is equal to, so we have your data dot get of arg2, right? Because I'm going to get data. So this data is nothing but your array list which we have tagged, and I'm using that array list, and I'm actually getting, whenever I click on some item, I'll get, okay, which item index I've clicked. So the same index I'm using on my array list to get the data at that position. Okay. So once we get it, now let's make a toast. New text, application context, and just say selected item here, and the duration, let's make it as toast dot long dot show. So this will give you the toast of the selected item in your list. This is how we actually handle the inner anonymous classes, right? So let me run this actually. Always whenever run, keep eye on your console and logcat, right? So if anything goes wrong, right, you'll actually get the first shot in your console. Then you can actually, if you want more details, then you can go to logcat. We'll see the logcat details. We'll be getting few things here, right? We'll see. So it is starting the activity now. Now my layout started. Now it will go to list view, right? Now when I click on items, now you can see it will actually show you the data, whatever you have selected, right? Drag up again, right? Click on something else again, right? And it will actually show the data, right? So this is how you can actually handle the data. Now, so as per your requirement, right, you can actually move ahead with whatever you want, like, which means like here what I'm doing here is I'm just showing some data in a toast. But when you select something, you may want to move from one activity to other activity. Based on some selection, you may want to get some details and then process some data and show data, right? You can do that because you're going to see how you can actually move from one activity to other activity and just sending some data now, right? So this is about a list view, and this is how we actually handle the data. Now here, let's go back and see something in list view. So we were in one layout, right? Let me just change the layout again. Control F11. So when I change, right, you can see that it will actually make up and it will actually fill up the whole screen again, right? Now you can see everything is there. When I click on this, it will actually automatically will be changed, right? So that is how you can actually make your thing okay, right? Now let's say for some reason if you don't want to make your make this app to actually rotate, right? So in that case you can go to manifest over here, right? So in the manifest, in the application, you can actually set something called screen orientation. In your activity. So let's talk about, we were in list view, right? Let's go to list view here, and in your list view activity, let me add one more attribute called screen orientation, right? So in this screen orientation, you can see there are so many. So whatever you want to keep, you can. Actually, let's keep the portrait one, portrait screen orientation. So now as you have changed the manifest file, right, let me just rebuild this part and run it up. Now you can see the old one, you were able to change the layout. Whenever you change, it used to change. Now let me just see how it works now. Always guys, whenever you change some configuration, you have to recompile and run it again, right? So now this is your view, which is a portrait view. Now if I change the direction, right, now you can see it will not change, right? So this is how you can actually, some activities you would have seen that it will actually, you don't want them to change the direction even if you tilt the phone, right? You want to make it standard, right? because if you tilt the phone, sometimes the resolution. I mean, the controls may be scattered across, right? Because your height will become width and width will become your height, right? So obviously, whenever whenever you take some standard, height and width of some controls, right, it will be scattered again, right? So in that case, if you want to keep, you can just keep your data as it is. Now if I click, you can see it still shows in a portrait manner, right? And if you want to always keep it in landscape, yes, you're always welcome. If you change it to landscape, it will always show in landscape. Let me just show you that.
Srinath?
Yeah.
Srinath.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you change the orientation
Mm-hmm.
of the tablet, I think it's restart the activity. Is it right?
Restart again.
Like suppose you have some database data, you are bring some database data in your list view, because when you change your orientation, it will lose the data.
Exactly. That is the reason. Yes, perfect. So that's what I was about to say. Now, whenever you understood what Faridi was saying, guys. Okay, first let me explain this part, and I'll actually give you why I'm actually showing this part. That is the main reason why we have to fix the orientation. Now, you can see when I click on this, right? When I click now, you can see that it works only in landscape. When I tilt my activity, now it is fine. Now, the reason why do we need to fix the orientation is the question, right? The answer is very simple. Let me just remove this orientation here, right? And let me run this. Now there is one thing that you have to know here. So whenever you change the orientation of your phone, right, your activity will be refreshed at that point, which means the whole activity will load again. Now, which means, let us say you are using your phone in a portrait manner, and you just book one ticket, right? If you tilt your phone, right, what happens? The activity will be refreshed again, and what happens? It will actually do the same transaction again, maybe, which is very dangerous, right? For that, you have to actually keep your thing ready. Now, let me show you how exactly it's here. Now this was my second activity, right? Let me just go to first activity. Now this was my first activity, right? Now can I go to second activity by any way here? Any answer? No, right? Because I don't have any provision in my first activity to go to the next activity. What is the provision? Only one provision is that whenever my first activity loads, that is the point when it goes to next activity, right? Let me tilt this. See here, when I tilt it, right, now you can see, which means my activity is loading again. Can you see? It went to my next activity. What does it mean? When I tilted the phone, the first activity got refreshed. So when it got refreshed, my first method called onCreate method got called again, and it actually went to the next activity. Is that clear, guys? That is the reason why, if you want to fix the orientation, you have to, and the fixing up is very important. Until unless you have the necessity of fixing the orientation, don't do that. Or if you know that okay, this can actually do something weird, then always go for fixed one. You can see that all your banking applications will have a fixed orientation. They will not have random. They can have random for few things like refreshing your balances screen, or or your FAQ, which is questions, frequently asked questions. These things are okay, but main transaction screens will always be in a same mode, same orientation, right? Now you can see, if I go back to my first screen, tilt it again, right? So it will go back to the old layout. Now it's going back. It will actually load the complete screen, and it will. But there is one more thing here. It will actually go to the current activity only will be refreshed, right? It won't touch the whole. If you have opened 10 screens, right, all the 10 screens will not be loaded, right? If you tilt your phone, only 10 screen will be refreshed, not the older ones, right? So that is how it works. That is why we, if you want to fix up the orientation, make sure that you have to justify why you are fixing the orientation to. Sometimes if you are actually making up some network, what do you mean, the social apps, right? Social apps. So basically, whatever you get for play, you get for read, you get for know something, right? So they are called as social apps, right? So in your social app, you have to provide all the ways of using the app. Why? Because if you fix your app in one orientation, right? Let us say I downloaded the app to my tab, right? So if I want to make myself comfortable on bed and I want to read, I have to make the orientation of tab in only one way. I can't tilt it. No one will like that app. Right? So that is something which is a social app I'm talking about. But if you're actually talking about a specific client, mobile workforce client, right, then obviously you have to go with his requirements, right? So that is how you can actually fix up the things. Fine. So that is the reason why we use this orientation part, and let me just give some orientation here so that whenever I share this code you can have this. Let me just say it is a portrait, right? And this should be given in your manifest, and you have to mention for this for each and every activity where you want to make it up, where you want to fix the portrait or fix the orientation, right? So that is all about views which we have. Fine. So we have one more view which is a tab view, and we'll see the tab view once we understand some of the widgets, right? So for that we need something like what is text view, or what is something called edit text, which is a text box control. What is button, what is image basically, right? We just understand two widgets and then we'll see how we can actually arrange them in a tab now, right? So these are,
A question.
yeah, Geeta.
How would it work with different size devices?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your voice. How it works?
How these activities will work on devices with different sizes?
Okay, that's why you see in your activity, right, if you're actually giving all the size and everything in DPs, right, which is density pixels, right, so it'll actually automatically arrange with respect to the pixel size you have, right?
Okay.
Maybe normally, if you're going for some smartphone, let us say it's a 5 or 5.1 inch of a smartphone, right? Then the pixel density will be, I'm not talking about pixel density, and the intensity of pixels, right, will be in some manner. If you take the same thing in some tab, it will be more, maybe, right? It will actually automatically arrange over there.
Yeah, it will get automatically arranged, or should we write any code?
No, you don't have to. For few things, if you're not using standard dimensions, yes, it will automatically arrange. But if you are giving some standard dimensions, like okay, this username should be only this much size, then obviously you have to you have to change your code for tab. Yep. You have to.
Okay.
Okay. So it is the same case if you are actually working in website, right? In website, always we prefer to give relative dimensions, right? We should never give px, right? You should always give some percentage or pts, which is percentage, right? So okay, your page which should be some 98% of your body, right? Or div should be this much. No? Why do we give? Because see, some person may be opening up the web page in tablet. In laptop. Some person may be using the same web page and opening it in desktop. Take an example of desktop itself. There is a 17-inch desktop. There is 25-inch desktop. Obviously, there is a very huge difference in orientation, right? Pixel density. So you would have seen some sites. No, it will be static. Even if you open up in laptop, it will be let us say 1000 px. Even if you open it in 25 inch of screen, right? It will be same height. Why? Because they don't want to actually go with a pixel. They just want to set the size. That's it. Even if you use in phone, you have to completely drag up your screen, which are okay. So some e-commerce sites will be there, will be as such, right? It all depends on the density, how the thing works. Right?
So then there is nothing to be written in code.
Sorry, it's too low actually. Can you just give them? What is that?
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
So in the coding part of the in our code, anywhere in source code or in XML, wherever,
Okay.
we need to mention those things. And
Which things?
the percentage thing that we were just discussing, or
No, you don't have to. You don't have to.
we don't have to, right?
No, you don't have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is about layouts, guys. So we'll get back to one layout, which is tab layout again, right? So when we actually learn some widgets and all, right? Now, so if this is clear, let's move on to the next segment, right? Which is a widget segment. Let me close this project. Now, always try to do this in Eclipse, right? There is one good feature that you can actually close up your project. Do you know that?
Yes.
You can just right click on project and close it up. Now, what is the use of this close is, once you close this, right, so there will be, whatever override you are actually creating with this, right, it will be removed. Now, whenever you clean this project, let us say, right, whenever you click on the clean, if you have 10 different projects, right, what happens? And when if you want to build only one, sometimes if you select all, right, it will take so much of time. So that, just close up all. Don't delete this, right, just close. It will actually show only the name and this. So there will not be any overhead on your project. Right? Let me create a new project here, which is Android application project. Go to next. Now let me call it as widgets. Now here let me call it as some sr.widgets, right? And let's take up API 8, and in my case I haven't upgraded. It's 17. You can just take up 4.3 18 API. That's fine, right? Click on next. Click on next again. So launcher icon, let's keep it as it is. So in widgets, we'll learn how to change the icon to, right? We'll see that. Click on next again. Now let me take a blank activity. Always keep it up. And main activity. Finish. Okay. So this is our activity which we created. Now perfect. So this is my main activity which I have, right? Where by default it will actually create hello world and so few things for you, which is hello world for you, and with this you will get a string XML being created. When you click on hello world here, it will go to XML. You can see this XML is in your widgets, resource, values and strings. It will be in your resource folder. RDS folder is something which is very important, guys. Each and everything will be created almost in a resource folder, right? And they will be relative, right? Never ever give any static paths in your Android application development. Never give, right? Why? It applies even to a web application or desktop application or anything. Always try to choose relative path, related to your project, right? Because technology, Java technology will, will give you all options to select relative path, right? It can be a website, it can be a desktop-based application or a small, jar file. Always try to, go for relative path, right? Now here, the first widget, let us see how we can use a button. So let's start with button widget, right, which is a very basic widget, and so include with this button, right, we'll just see few things how differently we can handle button. What are the different ways you can actually handle the button click from layout and directly from our class. Anyways, directly from our activity class, anyways we have seen, but we'll see one new thing today, right? So now in this main activity, okay, so let me close this activity again. Let me create a new activity. I don't want to touch my main activity. Let us say I want to create a new other Android activity. Next over here, let me call it as button activity. Right, so this is my class. Activity name is your class. Layout name is your XML, right, which will be tagged to your activity name, right? Click on finish. So when I click on finish over here, Okay, so you have your button activity. So what we'll do, we'll just go to the main activity here. So in main activity, let me create an intent, because whenever my main activity loads, I just want to go to the button activity, and here we'll see what exactly can be done. Huh? So yeah, let me try catch, and here always try to, now here let us see, before learning that which is my button, which is a widget, right? Let's see one thing here. Now you can see that every time I'm using try catch here, right? You have to ignore one thing here. So in our web application, in normal Java, right, what do we do is, whenever you use your try catch, right, we always do two things. First thing is showing up the error which you have got, and second thing is logging the same thing in your log files. Right? Now, showing up the bug, where do we show that? We basically show it on console, right? Some console. If you are developing something, so you can see directly over here, which is your console, right? And how about deployed one? If you have already deployed it in a server, right? How you can see? You can see it in your server logs, because server will have its own console. You can actually see in server consoles, right? Which again, there are two options in console itself. Sometimes server console will be saved, which is also called as server logs. Sometimes there will just be in a cache, right? With respect to the cache, it will actually save some lines, and as the lines increases, the old lines will be deleted. These things will run. Don't worry about this. The second thing, which is logging file, right? So whenever you get any error, or if you want to show detailed steps of what exactly is going on, you have to log each and every step in a file. But don't ever do that in Android, right? Whatever you want to log in a very minimal way. Why? Because if you're using if you're developing an app for smartphone, right, your application should not create heavy files. In server technology, that's fine. In server technology, right, you will be having much space, and obviously in server technology, if you're providing website for multiple clients, right, obviously you need each and every pin-to-pin tracking of what exactly is going on. Then you can actually log. But if you do the same thing in your Android phone, right, obviously if anyone is using your app for 5 days, right, his phone will completely fill up with the logs, right? Then obviously again you have to work on cleaning up the files and all, which means that app is not correct. Now, what can we do apart from that is always try to minimize the logging, right? You have to. I'm not saying that you should not. If it is a client project, right? If you are actually developing this any mobile app for a client, direct client, right? Then obviously you have to create log. And if the client is giving requirement, right, he will actually mention what should be the maximum size of file to be maintained, right? Which means, let us say if your file is going beyond like 50 MB, let's take an example. Then what client needs is he may want you to delete the old lines and append the new lines. But only restriction, you should not go beyond 50 MB. Why? Because what client will do is, see, whenever I am talking about client, right, a client who will use the application only for his organization. Let's take an example of Domino's, right? So if Domino's will have so many, people who will actually do the door delivery service, right? The people will be moving on from one place to another place to do door delivery. Now, how information will reach to them, right? through some mobile, let's say they have their own app, right? So whenever anyone orders some pizza, so what they'll do, they'll actually, route that or schedule that to some mobile worker, let us say, right? Now obviously whenever it goes to that, this type of business app will not be used by a social app guy, right? So what these things will be used by only the particular client. So in that way, you have to follow his own ways of registration. But if you are actually freelancing something, minimize as much as possible. That is the first thing about logging. Second thing, in Android, right, you have one more way of console which is called as a logcat. Now logcat is something which is again a temporary thing which is being logged. Whatever you do on your phone, right, whatever you do, if I go back, you can see one log will be created. If I click on something, right, you can see something will be happening. Whatever you do in here, everything will be working, logged in here, and it will show. But this log is not permanent log again, right? So if you give some filters, right, it will be shown. So in order to back up your logcat, you have to save this. You have to save this log for things. But okay, when you actually enter into organization, you understand what exactly I'm saying, because these things are something which are very important, right? So in real-time development environment, right, what happens is, so if you are a developer, right, and you have developed something, and if a QA guy, which is quality analyst, which is tester, is testing something, right, so what we'll do, we'll always ask for, if he is raising a bug, okay, this is not working properly, then you'll always demand for your logcat log. He can actually download the logcat log using DDMS. So we will see what exactly it is. You can actually see, if you go to perspective here, right, when I click on this, you will see some perspective called DDMS. We'll go to that part, because tester will not have Eclipse, right? Tester will not be watching that Eclipse and running your app. He won't be running in your emulator or something. He will be running. He will be installing the app in his mobile, and he will be working on that. What he can do is he can actually connect it to his machine, right? Open up some DDMS layout, and you can actually get the whole log as an export. And if you are getting, then you can actually check out this. Now let us see how we can actually do, or how we can actually use this logcat to show the data. Let me open that. Right, so now go back to the XML form. Right, now you can see that the complete XML of your button will be created here. Right? So let me just call it as let me just change this button as PTN, maybe some go, right? And here let me just say click on go, something. So you have this small text array button. Now that is your button called low, right? Now when I run this, now you can see this will be viewed in some way. Let us first run this and we'll see how exactly. Okay. Now in your main activity, obviously I just placed this. In your main activity you have to write intent to move to the next activity called button activity, right? So let me call intent here. Intent class of Android content, and lobj int is equal to new. So you have intent of. So I want to move from current class, which is my main activity dot this, to my button activity, which is button activity dot class. Okay. So and then just say start activity of intent. So this intent will be a privileged intent. Okay. So these are, we actually move from one screen to other screen. Right, so let me close this, and now here, this is my button. Go back to this, let's click on my button. Now I'm not gonna write anything in my button activity as of now. First let us run and see how it works. Run this. Now as we are running this project for first time, that widgets, right? So I'm using direct run button here. So obviously it will ask for whether you want to run this on I mean on server or Android application or anything, right? So let me just get the pop-up. Right? So you can run it from here, or just right click on widgets and just select run as Android application. Let me select this and click on OK. So once you select this one, right, so from next time it won't ask, because once you have selected it will be saved as this, right? So click on OK. Now go to console. Now it is launching widgets and everything. So let's go back to this. Now you can see that we have created a new project as such, right? So from layouts we created a new project as such. Now from new project I'm running this. Even then you can see that it is taking the same instance of your Android, because emulator is directly tagged to this complete Eclipse, right? That's why it is taking this. Now you can see this is your button, right? This is a button which will appear in your screen. Now it is giving some space. Okay, you just gave some space here. Okay, that's why we just give some space. Now let us see how we can actually handle the button click. Right? When I click on this, I should do some action. Right? So let us see how we can actually do that. Now first way, we'll see how to do that. Right? The first way is again the same way how we used to do. Like you can use your implement interface, which is on-click listener, or you can do an anonymous tag, right? So which we have seen till now. Now rather we just go to that part later. First what we'll do, we'll just create a method over here and we'll try to call that method from our XML, which is a layout, and we'll see that way. So let me create a new method here, which is, let me call it as now this method, for each and every method, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this method from my XML. So whatever you do from XML, if you want to directly call any method, right, you have to have an argument type of view. It should always accept an argument called view, right? You can just give it as view here. Close it out, and now this is your view, right? So what it will do, whenever you click on this, right, I want to do something. Now here, how can I call this method from XML? Now in your button, right, you have one internal attribute called onClick. Same thing, right? So in this onClick, just mention your method name, which is GoClick over here. So here, just do a GoClick. Now this will actually, go to this class, which is button activity, the corresponding class, and it will search for a method which accepts a view. Now this view is nothing but a complete button which will be handled over it. Now here, let me just take a toast first, and we'll see how whether it is coming up over here. Let me just make text of application context and text. Let us say clicked on button, right? And duration, let me take it as toast dot, let me give it as short dot show. And I'm just taking I just want to show something on this so that it will actually show up, right? Let me run this. Open up the console. It is installing the widget. activity now. Now it will start and it will go to buttons, right? Button activity. Now when I click on go, now you can see click on button. So now that's how you can actually make your method, right? And this is mandatory, guys. If you don't give this view, right? Let us say I haven't given argument to this method, which is for this go click. There is no argument called view. Let us say, right? Let us see what happens when I run this. This situation is something which you will get in real time. You would have got this. Let me run this and we will see what exactly it happens to this. When I click on go, right, now you can see it crashed. So which means it tries to get the method. Now there is no exception handling for this. That's it. App is gone. Right now the complete app is being crashed. You can see. So these again. It went to hello world, like back to the activity again. As this activity got refreshed, that's why it just came to button activity again. But it is something like it actually crashed your current activity, right? So that's why if you want to apply anything from here, you have to handle your code. So this is something which we basically call from our method, which is my go on click, right? But normally we basically don't use this. I've just shown you that because we have an option of that. Now let's go back to the class and we'll see how we can actually, how in real time we do handle the events. So if you remember, for all the widgets, right, as we have learned in event views, right, so in order to actually handle the event, we have something called set. We have set on click listener. Based on the widget you are using, there will be a separate listener for that. Let's go to the class and we'll see how we can actually handle the button click construction. So let's go to the class now, button activity. So on this, right, so on create, let us create a listener first. Right. So obviously whatever you have to create listener set, you have to create on click, everything. Right. So always try to habituate this. So always try to create one method, one separate method to handle or actually handle all the events. So let me just say it as public void as handle events. So in here, try catch. So now here let's call handle events method. Handle events method here, right? And now here we will handle the buttons. The first thing is we are working on button, so let's understand button. Now let me create a button widget first, because you have to get the hold of button widget or control which you have in your layout. Right? Let's go back here. Let us say btn is equal to button. You have to get it.
Shrinath, I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, Srinath, but I'm not able to hear.